So welcome to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio, and today is Tuesday, July the 29th, 2025. And we welcome Susan and Dr. Michael Ryce. And Lincoln in the background here.
What's exciting in your world today, Susan?
I have a question for you, Michael. I just got
Awesome.
off of a good session with Dr. Tim. He's reading questions that people have been asking through, it's part of the Christian Sundberg book. People ask him questions and he writes the answers. And
Right.
the question was, what do we do about all the suffering in the world? I think about starvation, and of course, we're being faced the combination. I mean, you're right. You once said that the condition of the world is better than it used to be in many, many ways. And yet is brought to us such that we're aware of much more suffering probably than we've ever been aware of before. So in a way, we think things are worse. And Dr. Tim was saying we are fine, we are okay, we are all okay. The picture is much bigger than we can understand, and we, if we could just go into that state of peace, we'd probably be much more effective in helping the things that aren't going so well in the world. There's nothing wrong with any of that answer. I think what I want is company in the awareness of the suffering. And one thing you did the other day when something I said, and I have no idea what it was, got you going, and you used the word hopeless, I think. And you were feeling that, even though it
Right.
wasn't the ultimate truth of where you ultimately are, you were right in there. And I think partly, aside from all the fixing that we would love to do, we also want to sort of join hands in saying, yes, I am feeling this too, whether it's hopelessness or just sadness about what's happening. We want company. And it's a way of connecting with people. Even if we can't fix it, we can say, I'm sharing this pain with you. And of course, that means we're choosing to feel pain. We're choosing to limit ourselves from our original bliss state. I don't know exactly what I'm asking here. I guess what I'm saying is I appreciated the share, the fact that you went there on the radio show for your customers who might be thinking that you're totally enlightened once and for all. And you make sure we don't think that,
Uh,
which is very gracious of you. But anyway, so it doesn't solve anything exactly, but it also helps us just feel connected
right.
while things are not solved.
Well, first of all, my take would be that the issue that came up when we were talking on the show last week, that was so deep for me, I recognized had nothing to do with the world. It had to do with a structure inside of me that I realize as long as I hold it via resonance and energy, I am part of the problem. I'm part of producing that in the world. So I certainly hear you joining hands with awareness, but I think the mistake that we can easily fall into is to think that we're in suffering or pain because of something that's happening out there. And
And
that to
adding to
me
that,
is
we think by suffering along with them, we're actually helping the situation, which is a total pile of baloney.
yes.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. So again, if I recognize that I can only feel what's happening inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who say they're empaths, so I feel everybody else's pain. No, my take here, if you're feeling your own pain, you're just in denial that it's yours. You're pretending
Mm-hmm.
it's everybody else's, but I don't believe there's such a thing as an empath in that way. There is an empath, and I think to a degree we all are empathic in that
Mm-hmm.
if I have a certain quality of pain and you have a certain quality of pain, since they're like middle C tuning forks meeting,
Yeah.
we're going to feel it. But what I'm going to feel, yes, stimulated, resonated by your pain, but the pain I'm feeling is mine. And the highest service I can be to myself and to you is to forgive us to that pain
Mm-hmm.
so that rather than resonating, feeding back to you, reinforcing the pain, I can become a space for the healing of that pain. And the only way I can become a space for the healing of that pain is to hold that space of conscious, active, present love. And ultimately, my take is that's the only healer that there is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here you are in your conscious, active, present state. What are you feeling in your heart? Is your heart just open, just like a wide tube beaming God's love right through your heart? I have felt that when I worked as a volunteer at hospice. I didn't know those people at all, and they were in a terrible state often. And what they say is they keep everybody comfortable. No, they don't. They don't always keep people comfortable. They do their best and they do a great job, but
Right,
sometimes there's terrible pain, and
right.
it's physical and mental too. But I just remember thinking, isn't this amazing? What the heck is this? I don't know these people, so I don't have any personal uh, quarrels. I don't have any tiny
You pretend
little.
you don't know them.
Well, just literally, I don't even know their names, but I know what you're saying.
Literally,
Th-
if we listen to Einstein, he says, if you think you're separated from the rest of humanity, you're falling for an optical delusion.
I get it,
Our,
but
our brain.
why was it so much easier then to
Well,
let,
I don't have a personal past with that person.
yeah, that's
So,
it.
so there's not the same kind of depth. If that was canceled, my mother,
Hmm.
I've got a personal past. There's going to be a
Yeah.
different level of empathy and a different level of shared, literally in this case, shared pain, things we've been through together, et cetera, et cetera.
And some of that would close the doors on that active present love unless you'd cleaned up your stuff between each other.
And or at the instant that I'm doing it, I clean up my stuff. I
Hmm.
was doing Quantum StillPoint yesterday, and I was sharing that Michael James at about, I'm not sure now, 4 days, 5 days, I did his first Quantum StillPoint with him. His mom was there, and I videoed it. And so I was
Michael
sharing it
James.
with, yeah,
Who's Michael
Michael,
James?
my namesake, my new baby grandson.
Oh, I thought it was Lincoln.
No, Lincoln is our baby grandson here. He's a year. But
Uh-huh.
remember, I made a trip to
Oh,
California,
okay.
to
Gotcha.
Kansas City
Thank
five
you.
months ago to greet Michael
Oh, that's
James.
right. I forgot about that. Thanks for
Yeah.
reminding me.
And so I'm working on a quantum still point with him, which a great deal of it is structured or is working around the core of what I call the antenna of the body, which is the skull. And I handed her my phone and she's watching it. Michael James, while I'm doing it, is making these just awesome, sweet little noises. And he goes from kind of a closed state to where he literally stretches his arms, open his arms out wide, and he's just, and I'm listening to these noises. I'm not watching the screen. I'm not seeing it. All I can hear are the little noises that he was making. And all of a sudden, on the left side of my temple, where my temple meets my parietal bone, I had this intense little shot of pain that I realized was a block in my antenna. And I was sitting about, 4 feet from her. She's watching the screen's turned toward her. I can't even see it, but Doing that with him, resonating that, opened that space in me. And so as I'm listening, I start doing the same energy field work on me as I was doing on him.
Mm-hmm.
So we certainly have another level of empathy and energy exchange with those who we have a history with and a connection with. In this case, particularly the fact that I have a genetic connection with him. It was enough for him to just be making these little noises to resonate that for me. And so my take is that, you know, if I'm continuously paying attention, life is continuously showing me what I need to heal: physical, mental, emotional. And sensations are a way that I am informed by that if I pay attention to my sensations. But a lot of times, if we're in, you know, total denial and dissociation, I mean, what should be excruciating pain in someone's physiology, they can't even feel because they're so cut off from it. So to me, part and parcel of it is developing a sensibility and a sensitivity, which, you know, can make that sensation more intense. Part of the training in the Quantum StillPoint is a training in shifting out of labeling energy flows within your structure as pain and starting to experience them as sensations. And oftentimes, about 90, I think as much as 90% of the pain people are feeling is because their brain interprets this as pain and generates that pain. And what I've observed is people who have some pretty severe, what would be called physical pain, when they can enter into softening, letting go of resistance, and then, you know, recognizing that in Aramaic, the word Satan means the resistor. It's much more eminent than some dude out there chasing people with lies. Satan is literally, in Aramaic, his physiology. It's the resistance in our own structure to experiencing what's moving through us. And so part of that training is to just let loose of the judgment of pain and experiencing sensations. And when one moves into experiencing a sensation, what I've experienced is they can then listen to the message that's there instead of being totally focused on the pain and resisting it, fighting against it. So part of the training is literally removing Satan from physiology. Satan is much more imminent than churchianity is let on. It is literally the resistance in our own structures, the tightening of the jaw, the tightening of the back, the tightening of the buttocks, the feet, the toes, anywhere. To you know, how often somebody's feeling pain, whether they tighten their fist, they're trying to hold back that energy, and their pain is coming from their resistance. Let go of it, and oh, here's a sensation. Oh, this is information. And I can touch into it. I can experience it differently.
I love that distinction between pain and sensation. That is something I'm going to pay attention to. I know people keep bringing this up, and I keep bringing it up, and I'm not sure why I'm so stuck on it. But for instance, in the news this morning, pictures and pictures and pictures of people holding out their hands and pots and pans and starving, and they look as if they're turning into skeletal.
Yeah.
And so I feel what I think is pain. I feel my like somebody grabbed my heart muscle and is squeezing it. Now that is definitely a sensation, and it's combined with all kinds of feelings of helplessness, and they're so far away, and there's so much in between my physical presence here in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and Gaza.
Right. Yeah.
So to call it a sensation, okay, it's a sensation. And I'm sure, I mean, does that mean I might have starved in some previous life? Do I have to have starved in a previous life to feel anguish when I see somebody suffering like that across the world?
No, I don't think so. I think I mean, that could be, but I think that more often it's just that I link the pain from my own thought disorder to things in the external world, which is simply another way of avoiding. And pain is a sensation in the body that is a result of holding on to disintegrative energy, energy that does not belong in the structure.
Mm.
And once again, I don't remember the physicist's name, but I thought it was such a profound statement for a physicist to make. Pick a flower on Earth and you touch the farthest star.
Mm.
What if, looking at that picture and suffering, you were to heal one piece of your suffering? How many flowers do you suppose that is that you just picked? And
Or
how
do I
many?
hurt people by feeling that pain? Am I
Reverse.
making it worse for them?
Well, it's all energy. So if I add an energy to, if I add a particular quality of energy to a similar quality of energy, what do I have? I have more of it. If I expose and start to transmute a particular quality of energy, then what happens? Maybe the person who's experiencing, well, at this moment, there's nothing I can physically do for them. Maybe if I handle the pain in me, the thought disorder in me, and I listen to, or I let myself experience the sensation in my physiology and heal that, maybe I just touched 1,000 people in Gaza.
That would be great. What is the thought disorder in me? I feel as if I don't have any brain for this. What is the thought disorder in me that needs correcting when I'm looking at that picture?
Well, that's what the forgiveness process is for, to empower us to ferret that out. That's what forgiveness does. So in that case, to get down to the specifics of it, you look at that situation that seems to be the cause of your pain, and what's the goal I have? So if you look at a picture of people who are suffering horribly in Gaza, what's the goal you hold? Who or what is the object of attention, and what's the goal?
Well, sure. I mean, it's that they get some food quick. They feel better and they have a reasonable life and the pain is taken away. Is that all part of a thought disorder?
So they'd all be goals. Well, no, it's how do you uncover what the specific thought is? You look at what the goal is, and then you cancel that goal. What's driving that? And there could be a wide array of things going on for you in your suffering as you look at those pictures. And I might look at the same picture and have a similar amount of suffering, but
Mm.
what I need to heal is probably totally different from you. And the goal involved, your goal might be just for that person to have a meal today.
Mm.
Or the real goal under the surface might be that we as human beings, this takes me back to that thing that came up last week, that cry that came up inside of me way back 25 years ago when I was in Arizona, that you assisted me in touching into another layer of. And what my goal was in that, the cry that came up is, I want to go home. I want to go back to where people treat each other like human beings.
Same.
So,
Yeah.
so what does forgiveness look like in that? That looks like me canceling my goal for people to treat each other like human beings and collapsing the projection from those thoughts inside of me that I put on that picture and going inside of me on a deeper level to what's this about in me. And my take is each person that is willing to do that piece of work is like they're taking a band of tightness and energy around the suffering that holds it in place and loosening their part in it. And
Well,
that's where Yeshua says a little leavening leavens the whole loaf. He's talking about critical mass. If a critical mass of people could loosen the band of suffering they hold that locks in the visible suffering, then they're now, instead of a contributor to that suffering, instead of energetically supporting that suffering, they're now one who can, in love, embrace that suffering and begin processing it out. And maybe, any one person does one particular piece of work, and the general that calls the shots, that's ready to shoot the next convoy with food in it and blow it to smithereens so no food's available, doesn't even know what just touched his heart, but he shares his thought. And he goes, hey guys, let's let this one through.
Mm.
And people get to eat.
Okay, Michael, I'm going to drag us all the way back to, I love that idea. Is it, for instance, in Dr. Tim's show, one thing that came up was just the constant judging we do with one another. If I see, I want to make a direct connection, whereas I don't feel when I'm looking at those pictures any direct connection to the need for forgiveness in me for something that I've been doing that isn't good or loving, unless I can switch it over. For instance, there's a certain kind of behavior that I get triggered by, no matter who does it. If I see that happening, I'm apt to get triggered because I do
Right.
it too. I do it too. And every time it comes up, I do my work around it. And I can feel the bands there uh, loosening up. But is that what you mean by doing our own work? Whatever
That's
it
exactly
is.
what I mean.
Okay,
That's
cool. I
exactly what I
got the
mean. Yes.
connection then. All
Yes.
right. So it doesn't have to be a direct connection. It's just doing our work in general, wherever we're not well.
Exactly. Exactly. And so,
Okay.
and in that situation, that example of what's going on in Gaza, I might, there might be literally in that type of situation, Yeshua's 77 times 70 worksheets for me to do. I might have the goal, of course, the basic goal for them to eat, for them to have comfort, for them to be safe, but it might be for the quote unquote, crooked dictator of the world that's so greedy that I might have to do a piece of work around canceling my need for that person to heal and feel abundance so that they can be generous and offer abundance to those who are under their control. That
Okay.
might be another piece of my work.
Mhm.
There could be 1,000 variations on the theme, and it's when I become, as you've heard me say 1,000 times, the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions. When I can step back and observe myself in operation. That
Mhm.
example I shared with uh, the video,
Yeah.
watching the person I was doing the quantum still point with, watching the video of me doing quantum still point on my grandson at 5 days of age. And that that was a stimulus for me to have to do a piece of work in my own skull physically. It was that strong.
Mm. Tell more about that. I want to understand that, what you connected with him, unless it's too
Well,
personal, of course,
well, no. There's nothing personal about it. No, it was just I'm sitting there and I've shared, it's about a 4-minute video,
Mm.
and I've shared it with the person I'm getting ready to do quantum still point with. And as she's watching it, just the noises that my grandson is making as I'm doing it for him, I'm not watching the recording, is enough to resonate in me some pain that I was holding in a particular place in my cranial structure.
Mm.
So what I did in that case is I kind of tuned out and I breathed and I went and adjusted that part of my own head. Went
And
into
was that,
that spot. And in fact, as I'm describing it to you, I'm physically doing it and
wow.
realizing that there's still another layer in there that I need to move because there's still some tenderness there.
So it's a physical pain. It's not
For that, at that point, that was a physical pain. There was nothing emotional attached to it, nothing in
yeah,
awareness, at least yet, that has come up. That for
yeah.
me was, I mean, it was just straight up what I would call physical.
Mm. Interesting.
And as I'm kind of jamming my thumb into it right now, I'm realizing there's more I need to do with it. So I'll
Well,
probably
is a
you need to
physical
breathe me in,
pain, sorry,
do an
go ahead.
energy field session and breathe me later.
Is a physical pain more than, I mean, you're saying, you talked about John Sarno, the physical pain was an emotional thing. So are you saying that this physical pain presents as a physical pain and could be interpreted as just a physical pain, but you're saying now it's got an emotional component and maybe an origin in something emotional?
Well, you bring up a really important point, and that is if we're truly going to heal, excuse me, I hit a button. If we're truly going to heal, we're going to have to be dealing with truth.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not energetically dealing with truth,
Yeah.
then there is no healing. So give me just a second here. I'm just looking something up. I shared this last week and I'm going to share it again because it fits right here. So all this conversation about physical. So let's listen to the Nobel Prize winner in physics, Max Planck, who discovered and got the Nobel Prize for presenting quantum physics. So this happened, this which he wrote, which I'm about to share. He wrote in 1944, which was 26 years after he got the Nobel Prize in physics. And I'm reading this because this is an invitation for us to be in the truth. And it's not until we get to the truth that we can get a change. We can bang our heads against the lie and try to change it for eternity, and it's not going to change until we bring our lie to truth. So, and this is a truth it's been around since ancient times. And if our minds are inertia bound in our beliefs, it's difficult, if not impossible, to grasp. And then even more difficult to apply. But until you can integrate the truth that this statement gives us, we're going to inhabit and function out of false beliefs formed out of ignorance. So until the truth is known, there's no actual liberty. So here's what Max Planck writes. In all my research, I have never come across matter. To me, the term matter implies a bundle of energy, which is given form by an intelligent spirit. As a man who's devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research this much. There is no matter. All matter, he says, originates and exists only by virtue of a force, which brings particles of an atom into vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must, he says, assume behind this force there is the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. So until I understand it, the truth is I don't have a skull. I don't have a hand to put on my skull. I have a belief system and I have an appearance, but those things that we think we see are shadows of something real. But until we go to the reality, as long as we're dealing with the effect, let's imagine I have a camera trained on a bottle on the table,
Mm.
and I bring a bunch of kids in who know nothing about cameras or projectors, and I'm projecting this 3D picture of a bottle that looks really real on a table that looks totally and completely real in there. And I tell these people that I'm going to give them whatever reward they want if they can move the bottle from one side of the table to the other. The camera and the actual table and the bottle are in the back room. And these people who know nothing of cameras and 3D and all, they walk over and, they put their hand to hold the bottle and all they hit is a blank wall. It's like, well, why can't, and they have no comprehension of what's going on. They have no brain cells for the truth of what's going on. And then I say, tell you what, I can see that you're having trouble with this. Maybe if I give you this axe, you can get at that bottle and move it. So I give them the axe and they whack away at the wall and they chop it to pieces, but the bottle still remains on the table. Wherever that shadow, wherever that projection hits, now it's on the floor, but the bottle still remains. They're trying to change an effect.
Mm.
Now imagine that, they're really, at the point of having swung that axe so many times, they're pretty sweaty. And I say, tell you what, here, sit down. Here's a cool drink of water. Just relax for a minute and I'll be right back. And I go into the back room where the projector and the camera are. And I pick the bottle up and I move it from one side of the table to the other. And I come back out and these people from the jungle look at me like I'm some kind of miracle worker. How did you do that? You're the omnipotent one. Look at all we did to try to move that bottle from one side of the table to the other, and we couldn't. And you just did it. And they fall down on their knees and worship. And I say, wait a minute, whoa, 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 wait a minute. The things I do, you can do. And
Mhm.
even greater things, you just got to know where the bottle is, where the original is, where the actuality is.
Mm.
And so Yeshua is saying, the things I do, you can do, but you got to deal with the fact that the truth of what's going on. You can't deal with the illusion. He said, don't judge by appearances. Matter is an appearance. And so ultimately, it all comes back to what is organizing the matter. And when I put an energy into the system that is of a disintegrative nature, that's off the mark, or what the Aramaic calls sin, then the system's going to warn me that this energy is off the mark.
Mm.
And until I'm willing to take hold of it on the level where it's truly cause and change it, real change isn't going to be possible.
And the cause is any energy that needs correcting in our own system, whether
Any
direct,
incoherent energy, yes.
yeah, and it
Whether
doesn't
it's our
matter.
own thoughts or it
Yeah.
might be something registered in the genes from 100 generations ago.
Mm-hmm.
That the mind, when you think of the mind of man as it's described in the ancient teachings, the mind of man literally includes everything stored in our genes. And if there's something that hasn't been resonated into activity or moved in my genetic structure, my genetic history in 10 generations, and something shows up of a matching energy instantly through resonance, just like if I put a middle C tuning fork in front of another middle C tuning fork, that second tuning fork starts to move. That energy from 10 generations ago in my genes is going to start to resonate and it's going to pop up. And all of a sudden, I'm going to say, where did that come from? I don't even know what that means.
Mm.
But I have this discomfort, I have this pain, I have this trauma going on. And
Mm-hmm.
so, to me, an important part of this work is to develop the sensibilities to be able to become aware of what is cause at subtler and subtler and subtler levels until we're in touch with what's behind it all. And that's what we do with our minds. And then you listen, you add to that conversation when they said to Yeshua, well, what do we do? What do we do? He says, what's first? He says, you start with Rahma. You got to start with this filter in the frontal lobes of your own brain, and you got to keep that gateway filter open and operative. And when you do, then you'll touch into deeper and deeper levels, and you'll develop the skill of being able to see, hear, listen to what previously, and maybe for 10 generations, has just been shut down and seems impossible to hear. You'll remember Yeshua said to his disciples, there's so many things I want to tell you about, but you just can't hear them. You can't even go there. And it takes time to develop the discernment and the brain cells to recognize what's really going on. So when I talk about that resonance of that pain in my own skull as I'm listening to this video where I did Quantum StillPoint on my grandson, I still have not touched into any thought behind it at this point in my physiology. It's just reflecting as uh, nothing big. It's not a big deal. It might be something big deal under it. I don't know. I haven't really spent the time. This was just about, this was just a day ago that this happened, and I haven't spent any real time with it. But ultimately, we've got to go past the physical. Most everybody wants treatment on a physical level, but treatment and healing are two totally different things. Healing only happens when I deal with things that cause. So what's it causes me when I look at that picture that brings up pain? The best way, the most effective way I know to get to that is to look at what I call the external circumstance and identify specifically the goal that I'm using that resonates or recruits this pain into activity. And then I cancel, forgive the goal. I cancel the goal, and the pained perception of the moment collapses in on its own footprint. And if I've developed the willingness and the brain cells, I'm going to become aware of another level of something that I've hidden from myself that, maybe I had no idea was there. And I might even go back and remember, gee, I remember my mom having that. I remember dad having that. And they had no idea what was going on. And all of a sudden, bingo, I become aware of it. And I'm now able to process through it.
In the case of, this is getting very literal, but I had a hernia operation and there was scar tissue left and brain, and they think there's some nerve damage there. And I just had my first acupuncture uh, treatment this morning, and it's hard to know. It was wonderful, and I'm waiting to see whether I need more. Probably do, but
Right?
that was just a mechanical injury
Yes.
causing a mechanical, some kind of damage. But are you saying that even in that case, there's forgiveness that's needed?
Yes.
Is that because of what I'm making it mean? Because I'm not making it mean anything except that I can't move around quite as freely as I used to, and I'd like to get that
Right.
back. That's a goal, but there must be something else going on.
Right. So, if I come up with some sort of injury, why? What's the energy behind that injury? Like oftentimes, for instance, people that will have things they refuse to deal with, so they render them unconscious, and I'm talking about myself here, uh, and they'll end up repeatedly injuring a particular part of their bodies. Like and an inordinate number of times, like 100 times to this one part, to maybe one time to any other given part. Well, it's coincidence that you injured that part 100 times? No. When we hold things unconscious, then we tend to be unconscious of that tissue, and that's when we tend to unconsciously injure ourselves. And this climbing up out of the unconsciousness to become conscious and aware is the process of healing and developing the skills.
Even though in this case, the doctor made a mistake, I guess, putting the mesh in or something. I mean,
Hmm.
what am I making this mean? I can understand that, but I certainly have never had this injury before,
Right.
and I'm planning not to have it for very long, although who
Hmm.
knows.
I'll support you in that.
But what you're saying, I'm making this mean something, or I asked for this on some level?
Well, if we're creators,
Mm,
then we create either out of the desert. Remember that story about this group of people that spent 40 years in the desert, and most people spend about 40 years unconscious. The desert is just a code word for the unconscious. And so find themselves walking into situations, recreating things unconsciously. So I'm not saying that is it, but I'd certainly take a look. Is there an energy in that tissue? Why did it end up being herniated? What was the energy that was locked there? Am I willing to access it? And if I access it, might that, scar tissue, in at least in the system of medicine that I'm trained in, naturopathic medicine, scar tissue is simply suppressed trauma. And if I can let myself access that trauma,
mm.
will the tissue reorganize itself?
I have such a literal mind, Michael. It's a pain in the ass.
Well, careful now what you ask for. That's a literal request.
Yeah.
You probably don't need that.
Mm. I had a hernia on the other side and it was repaired and it went fine and I never had any after effects. And it was the same doctor.
All right.
He does like Donald Trump, though.
Well, bless his heart.
Yeah. Well, I have taken up a lot of time on this radio show and I'm trying to just zero in on where the lack of understanding is still, but thanks for going along this path this long.
Well, and if our lives have been outer directed, the inner journey is really quite a thing to step into the trust,
Mm-hmm.
to step into the quieting of the mind, to quelling perception,
Mm.
and to allow the voice of the past to be weakened until the subtle energy, what was called the still small voice, literally the direct connection to the creator's voice, becomes available.
Well, and then to realize that this might not be a fantasy. Like I could tell you what I think this could mean, this whole, you know, injury in that area, groin area and down the leg, just
Right.
sympathetic. But I might just be making it up. The fact that a connection occurs to me at all might mean something, or it might be just me having a lot of fun making up stuff
Yeah.
out of thin air.
You have to develop your own discernment. One of the things in the intuitive development intensive that we
Mm-hmm.
instruct people repeatedly is to trust what comes to their minds. And if they feel like they're making it up, go ahead and make it up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're working with a partner. And what they find out is, in the exercises that we do in that intensive, is, oh my God, I just made up a true story. And when one
Wow.
first is tapping into their intuition, especially if they don't have feedback to tell them when they're accurate or not, which is part of the objective of the intensive, a lot of people are, well, that's just a fantasy. But when
Mm-hmm.
you start getting the feedback and go, oh, yes, there are other ways for me to access energy than through my five senses and my intellect,
Mm-hmm.
then my take is then we're moving into living in contact with the actuality rather than through all the symbols. As the Course in Miracles talks about, we live by symbols. What are
Mm-hmm.
words? Words are symbols. What's a picture in the mind? It's a symbol. And so allowing ourselves direct contact with the actuality, to me, is part and parcel of the willingness, and to allow that to come in ways that don't intellectually make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you get feedback, well, geez, how did you know that?
Mm.
Well, I didn't know that. I just made it up. Well, I made it up based on a prompt. And when you get the experience of feedback over and over and over again, you get to know when those prompts are the real thing and they're not just a fantasy in the mind.
Gosh, you have to be so careful because if you go out too far, it, I mean, there are just some things. I have a friend who says, well, I know this is true about you because I'm very intuitive. And I think,
Oh, yeah, right.
that's really nice. I'm glad but I'm staying away from you
Your intuitive
because
projection.
I know. What are you going to say? It's like God told me. I mean, what am I going to say to that? God's a big deal.
No. To me,
Anyway,
the
Michael.
objective of that is to be able to listen and know when your listening is correct.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, on the show, you've heard me 1,000 times give people a piece of feedback. Say, well, here's the sense I get of it. Check it out and see if it's true. Now,
Yeah.
if I were wanting to proclaim myself the psychic of the year, then I'm psychic, and here's what that means. It's like, I don't know what that means,
Yeah.
but I'll put it out with, does that fit? Does that make sense? And
Thank God you do
if
that.
if my intuition's on track, they'll go, oh, that's it. Yeah, there it is. Boom.
Yeah.
And so I listen to my intuition. I listen to that, and
Mm-hmm.
rather than having to proclaim it as, this is the end all and the be all, it's just, well, does this feel like, does this resonate something for you? And
Mm.
having worked on with intuition, there was a point in the early years of doing this work that, I mean, I could be working with someone one-on-one and I'd have a whole visual picture of what happened to them. And I mean, and checked it out many times and it was accurate. And I actually shut that down because my guidance was, that's not the best way to do things.
Mm. Like
And
too facile, the information coming through too fastly, not allowing them to come to it themselves, or
exactly, the idea is to support one in developing their own faculties and opening.
yeah. Cool. That's so great.
So
Well, I was with this acupuncturist today, and my son actually saw her some years ago. And he liked his experience with her, but he said he never understood what happened to him. She put a needle in his ear, and he said, suddenly I found myself absolutely sobbing, and I had no idea where that came from. It's like this little pin touched something. I didn't have, she put one in my ear too, and I thought, am I going to cry now? No, it wasn't the same at all. But he said, I never understood what that was. To this day, I should ask her, what is that? Have you ever heard of that?
of course, remember, we're energetic beings. If there are points where we shut something down and someone can open that point, all of a sudden we have access. And acupuncture is a really well-researched science. And if an acupuncture needle is put on a point through a certain meridian where one is holding trauma, that
Mm,
trauma lets loose. And all of a
mm,
sudden, in many cases, just like when people are still point breathing, not always, but in many cases, they'll go directly to what that trauma was about, what that
oh,
memory is
wow.
about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's perfectly sensible to me.
Mm. Anyway, Michael, I keep saying, I'm getting off now so you can do your show.
Well, we're down to 6 minutes here, so let's
Oh,
check and see if Jeannie or Terry have anything to share. Add question, thoughts, answers. It's just making sense. What's happening for you, Terry? Jeannie? I know Jeannie's got Lincoln in there, and he's been pretty active.
Or Sally's on too.
Oh, I don't see Sally.
Hi, Sally.
Any thoughts for you, Sally? I don't know why I'm not seeing you. Well, gee, that's weird. It's showing 5 participants, but I
Hello,
don't see
I'm
Miss Sally.
real.
Oh, there she is. You just
I'm
came back.
Minnie.
Hey there, young lady. Welcome.
Oh, it's so good to listen to the dialogue between the two of you, and so wonderful to remember my own acupuncture experience, my own lifetime of re-injuring lower back. The various places that I can now notice myself holding energy and what I now need to do about that so that it doesn't stick and make trouble. And so it's beautiful the learning that we get to do together in this show. And when one person speaks, it's the voice, the collective shows up in such beautiful ways. And I'm just so grateful to have an opportunity to be here.
Well, I hear you loud and clear. I understand fully, and I'm totally with you in the gratitude for it. To me, the last 15 years of being able to do this radio show and the things that people bring to it that I've never considered that open up the conversation. If you go back and look at my book, which was, I think, 1996 that I published my book, the acknowledgments, and there's serious acknowledgement. I spent a lot of time coming up with people who influenced and helped to build that book. Why is this happening to me again? And if you go to the acknowledgments page, there were over 500 names.
Wow.
Usually most people write a book and, well, thank you to mom and dad and Uncle Harry. But
Wow.
I went through and looked at people who seriously participated in, brought the questions that opened and has built this work. So
That's
yeah,
so
this is
beautiful.
the beauty and the power of community. All kinds of things I never thought of, never would have if somebody hadn't asked this question or that question.
Mm. Well,
And to me,
you
go
do a
ahead.
beautiful job of dancing with the energy that shows up.
I'm having
It's
fun.
like watching an artist with words. Sometimes there will be a question, and I'll think, how is he going to navigate this one? And sometimes you'll just go simple and just like land exactly on the words that free up the dilemma or it's just a beautiful dance, and I'm grateful to be here.
Cool. And, one of the things we've talked about often over the years is a lesson from A Course in Miracles on the development of trust.
Mm-hmm.
And, the name of the literal name of the breath of the creator that's in us is Ruka. And that word or that idea from the Aramaic is about a feminine elemental force in us that when we're ready to let go of something, literally defined as undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. There literally is a power in you and a power in me and a power in each one of us that does that. You go back to Yeshua and he says, you can deny me, like I'm irrelevant, though everybody wants to make him the deal. He says, you can deny me, but don't deny the one I came to connect you with, that one that is in you. Your home is supposed to be there. The first beatitude is not those who are poor in spirit, a fly speck on a piece of paper from the Aramaic. Change the translation of the word home to poor. No, he was saying your home is to be in the eternal forces from the Creator. And if that's our home, then any frequency, any vibration, any energy that shows up, she is there to teach us.
Mm-hmm.
And who was it that the writer, I forget who it was, but said, all you have to do is get your bloated nothingness out of the way. If we get our own heads and our own issues out of the way, then there's a power in us that will give us the answer to anything if we're listening. And most people don't listen. So joining you in listening and breathing. And thank you, Susan. Any other thoughts before we close?
No, thanks so much, Michael. That was really good. It's funny what we started talking about on Dr. Tim's show, we just went seamlessly into your show and held for another whole hour.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, joining you in trusting Ruka,
Mm,
softening, opening everything to receive from her.
thanks.
All right,
Thanks a lot.
everybody. Hey, delighted, blessings. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have the